Hi guys, Farmall here. Um, it's winter time and there's not much to do outdoors except for plow snow, so I thought maybe we'd fiddle with this old TV here. This is a General Electric. I don't remember the model number right offhand, but I can find out for you because it's right here on the back. It is a 17T11 General Electric television. I think this is probably 50s vintage. I couldn't find out much information on it, but we've got it set up with my test rig with light bulbs in there to cut the current down, and she's running right now about 64 volts, 63.8 on the set, so it's cut just about in half from the 120 line. And I don't know if you can see in there or not, but the tubes are glowing. That's a tube right there. And I haven't done anything with this set. This set I found alongside the road, and people were getting rid of it. So I picked it up. So we're just letting it simmer at 63 volts, about half voltage, to try and reform the electrolytic caps a little bit. Sometimes it's successful, sometimes it's not. When they sit for a long time and they're not used, the older paper electrolytics tend to break down, and then they'll usually short. Sometimes they'll just explode. So a lot of old time radios and TVs and stuff are ruined because people just find them in an attic or whatever and plug them in and turn them on, and they're hit with that voltage, and things tend to not like that. So, and when the cap's short, they can take out the power transformer, which is usually what happens. So we're just going to let this set for probably an hour. I'd like to let it sit for an hour at half voltage. And what we're running it through is we've got a 60 watt bulb here and a 40 watt bulb here, and they're in parallel with each other, so that's 100 watts that it's allowing through, which is about right because the set says it draws, I think, 170 watts or 190 watts. So it's letting approximately half of the wattage through. So the set's getting 63 volts, and there's probably about 60 volts on the bulbs, 58 volts across the bulbs. The bulbs are in series with the power to the set, so it's basically acting as like a resistor. And the good thing about this, you can use a variac, but the trouble with a variac is if something goes drastically wrong inside the set, why then it'll blow the fuse on the variac if it shorts it. This way, if something shorts inside the television, say a cap across the power supply, and it starts drawing too much power, the bulbs will just get brighter, taking up the voltage hopefully instead of damaging components inside the set. So we're just going to let this simmer. It's running pretty steady, right about 63.9, 63.8, about 64 volts. So we're just going to let this simmer, and then what we'll do is I will take the 60 watt bulb out and put a 75 watt bulb in there and give it a little bit more voltage. So then you'll have a 40 and a 75 in parallel to let more current through. And I do have a 150 watt bulb that I'll step up after that and see what the voltage is with that. So for now I'm going to pause and just let this simmer. Well, tubers, I'm back. It's been about an hour. We're still hovering right about 64.5 volts now. No smoke yet. Bulbs are still quite dim. So what we're going to do now is we're going to screw out the 60, screw in the 75, which should give it a bit more voltage. It's about 71.5. It's dropping a little bit as the tubes are heating up. conducting more current. And tubes are still glowing. No smoke yet. We were starting to get a little 60 hertz hum. I don't know if we can hear that. It's a little bit of a crackle as I turn the volume. I don't know if we're getting any high voltage yet. I don't see anything on the screen. I'm going to guess that there's possibly something wrong with the flyback or the high voltage circuit, because this metal box, and I would touch it except it's a live chassis, this metal box houses the high voltage, the flyback and the high voltage regulator and rectifier. I don't know if you can see that glowing down in there or not. It's pretty dark. Yeah, you can see it right there. That's a filament for one of the tubes. That was pried open, so I don't know if somebody was messing in there or what was going on, but we'll see. As you can see, I've got the positive. Where's my little flashlight? Maybe you can't see. I've got the positive lead in the auxiliary outlet, and the negative lead hooked to the chassis, and I'm measuring 70 volts. So that lid there was pried up. There's a screw missing right there, and I don't see anything out of place in there, but I don't know if maybe they were working on the tubes or what they were doing. But that's the tuner, and that's the main chassis. One thing I did notice is there's no power transformer. There's an electrolytic cap there, a paper one, and there's a metal one, a couple metal ones. There's one there. If you can see, there's a small one laying down on the chassis right there in a clip. But I don't see a power transformer. So I don't know if it's mounted under the chassis or if it's powered with a line. It's quite possibly powered by line voltage. But we're going to let it simmer for quite a while, probably another 40 minutes or so at 70 volts, and see where we're at. You can't see if the picture tube. Oh yeah, the picture tube. She's got filament glowing in there. So we'll let her simmer there, and we'll see what happens. Hey guys, I'm back. I've been running it about an hour. It's stabilized at right about 70.7, 70.8 volts. If you can hear there. Still can't hear it very loud, but there's a little 60 hertz hum. I don't see anything on the screen yet. We're going to change the 40 watt bulb out for the 60 watt bulb. So then we'll have a 60 and a 75. And the voltage should stabilize somewhere around 80. Looks like it's going to be about 77. That's not a significant amount. I'm going to go get the 150 watt bulb and put that in. Okay, I got the 150 watt floodlight in there now. It's running about 80 volts, 79. There's some noticeable hum. You hear a little scratchiness when I turn the volume knob. Probably going to let it run there for, well, I don't know if I've got enough time tonight for another hour. Yeah, probably. Let it run there at about 80 volts for an hour, and I've got the 40 watt bulb started in the socket, but it's not contacted, so I'll just take it out. And we're going to let it sit here. I don't hear any high frequency from the horizontal circuit. I can usually hear the 15 point something kilohertz of the horizontal circuit. I don't hear that, so I don't know if there's a bad tube in the high voltage section or the horizontal section, but I don't hear any high voltage. But we'll see. We'll be back in probably another 45 minutes or an hour. Well, she's been humming away for probably a little over another hour. Still got the 60 hertz. I don't know if you can hear that. Tubes are glowing nicely. We're running about 80 volts. Still no raster or anything on the picture tube. Nothing with the brightness control at all. And again, I still don't hear the high voltage. Well, I don't hear, you can't hear the voltage, but I don't hear the horizontal frequency. So we're going to put the 40 watt bulb in, which is now taking us up to about 90 volts. And the 60 hertz is getting louder. Still don't have anything on the picture tube. I'm guessing we're not generating high voltage. Doesn't really pick up them tubes very well. You can see a couple of them glowing. The high voltage regulator is glowing quite brightly. I think that's the regulator. I do not know. According to the handy dandy tube chart, that is a horizontal output, 25 BQ6. That's the horizontal output. Right there, right there. And high voltage regulator, a rectifier is a 1X2A. There's also a damper tube in there, 25W4. And I can't tell if those are glowing. So what I might do is run it this way for a little bit, power it down, make sure there's no voltage on the chassis, because I really don't want to get nailed with 90 volts. And see if I can't see those tubes glowing. But we're going to let her simmer here for a little bit. Probably not an hour. We'll let it simmer here for a while and probably come back to it tomorrow. Just a quick note, I popped this lid up, and actually the tube that you can see there glowing is the damper. This one right here in the front with the plate cap, or grid cap, I'm not sure, is the horizontal, and there's a little, I don't know if you can see it right there in the center of the screen, through that little crack. That's actually the high voltage. And you can see the flyback in there a little bit. I know the camera won't pick it up from this angle. But the interesting thing is these two screws here for the antenna. We are getting some signal through, because if I touch these with a screwdriver, you can hear the speaker crackle. So signal is getting through the audio section anyway. Still don't have any high voltage, but there is some life to the old girl anyway. Hey guys, Farmo here. I decided I'd pull the chassis of the GE television out to get a better look at it, clean up the tubes and the sockets, and check for any major problems and see why the high voltage doesn't seem to be working. Got a couple selenium rectifiers up here on the front end, bunch of old caps. Eventually they should all be replaced. But I did notice yesterday that on the horizontal output tube here in the back of the chassis, the top cap is really corroded where the wire goes in. So I'm probably going to get the old soldering iron out and check it all over, see if I can find anything bad. I'm probably going to check all the tubes with my tester too, if they're in the book, and see if I can't find anything bad with those. But I'm going to upload now and continue recording after you upload and get the tubes and stuff tested.